Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is Harry Brelsford from SMB Nation coming to you from our Seattle-based office for another weekly webinar. So a little bit of housekeeping up front before we get into the introductions. Please use the chat feature to ask your questions like you do each week. We are making a recording of the webinar, and tomorrow morning you'll receive a thank you notification as well as a link to the webinar and any other pertinent resources out on the web. With that said, next week we have a webinar on PowerShell, and the following week we have a house webinar on how to design the next small business server. So wave your magic wand and tell us what you think the next SBS should look like. So that's a couple of upcoming things. We have Toronto coming up on the first Friday in March. So you'll get information on that for the PowerShell workshop and so on. Without further ado, I'm with Chris Gaither from Qualys, and today we're here to talk about QualysGuard Consultant for security consultants and compliance auditors. So we're going to go deep and we're going to go fast. Chris, thank you for joining us this week. And sir, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Harry. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Gaither, and I am the Consultant Partner Manager here at Qualys. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us, and I look forward to providing the information I have for you today. This call will be centered around the specific and unique model that we provide to firms such as yourself that are looking to expand their current service offering from network security assessments and compliance audits, whether it be targeting IP addresses or URLs on your client's external or internal network. A little bit of background on myself. I've been fortunate to be with Qualys for over 10 years, and I've had the opportunity to see our company grow and expand from one product offering to a whole suite of products that are being delivered globally. My primary responsibilities include supporting our consultant channel program throughout US and Canada from a business and technical perspective. On today's agenda, just a few slides. I'll start by providing a brief overview of who Qualys is. Next, the approach we take with our business model, followed by a few names of certain organizations I believe you'll be familiar with that leverage our model today, and then moving on to some details on QualysGuard for consultants, including some product-specific information, and then we'll finish up with answering your questions that have come about during our call. Qualys began in 1999 and is known as a pioneer and leader in cloud security and compliance. As you can see here, Qualys now has over 6,700 customers in over 100 countries. We are solely focused on providing security and compliance solutions to organizations of all sizes around the world. I'd like to emphasize that Qualys does not provide any consulting, professional services, or managed services, which is an important contributor to the our successful and diverse partner programs. Overall, what distinguishes Qualys essentially? The cloud platform and SaaS business model, and that's what we'll get into a little more in depth today. To expand on that, how does Qualys differ? Our approach, which essentially becomes your approach by eliminating the dependency of traditional software, hardware, and agents. This opens up your offering to provide much more frequent and value-added services. The main difference between our solution and those provided by other vendors is, again, our software as a service delivery model. It enables incredibly fast deployment. It's easy to use, highly secure, and has a very low total cost of ownership. Another way we're different is our products offer your clients a complete 360-degree view of their security and compliance posture, and it's extremely accurate. What that means to you or your clients is better results. There's far less false negatives, false positives, and higher quality information with actionable steps. At the end of the day, it's your clients, and you want to provide them with the best, most accurate information possible. And that's what you get with QualysGuard, 6 Sigma accuracy. And lastly, is a very important point. Since Qualys is a trusted third-party source, your customers have a solution that provides complete audit trails with verified results. This is important to your customers as it's required if your customers need to be compliant with regulations like PCI, HIPAA, and SOX, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Qualys has an incredibly high quality customer base. Many of the world's largest organizations use Qualys. We have a wide variety of firms with various requirements, but all share the need to find a solution that is cost effective, has knowledge-based depth, and of course, accurate. On the services side, you can see Deloitte, Ernst & Young, Accenture, PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG are all taking advantage of our offering in their engagements. These are, of course, large organizations. So what does it mean to you, essentially? It means credibility to your clientele as well as quality assurance. Your goal as a consultant is to provide as much value to your customers as you can with the hope that you're establishing yourself for ongoing services. But of course, it needs to be cost effective. QualysGuard for Consultants allows you to perform external and internal scans accurately against various targets with a low predictable total cost of ownership. This essentially frees yourself from installing and maintaining software, hardware agents, syncing databases, encrypting data, or wading through lists of issues you've already dealt with previously. From a compliance perspective, Qualys is a CIS Security Benchmarks Consulting Auditing member, and with that, our policy compliance product provides CIS certified and portable policies through our policy library that can be used to meet your client's requirements and perform readiness assessments, such as for HIPAA. By using Qualys Model, you can remotely monitor your client's networks, web apps, and system configurations for vulnerabilities and, of course, compliance needs. QualysGuard provides you the ability to perform these assessments for your clients from a third-party perspective, which is critical for any compliance regulation. This is 100% possible because of our delivery model, software as a service. In addition, perform ongoing network discovery, looking for forgotten devices, rogue apps, what we also refer to as URL-based scanning, anywhere in development, QA, or production. In reference to reputation, I think this is an important point. What you essentially will be using is the industry's leading cloud-based security and compliance solution. You're able to add your own brand to the reports, again, showing that you're partnering with a reputable third-party company, and add your analysis to the reports that you can then customize to your client's specific needs. What you see here is a screen capture of what is available within QualysGuard Consultant from a product perspective. What I'm going to do now is transition to the Qualys website to provide more product-specific information and show you where you can learn more on your own after this call. From the Qualys website, right at the very top here, under Partners, you can see that we have various levels of partnerships. Today, of course, we're specifically referring to QualysGuard Consultant. So you can get directly to this page here if you'd like to learn additional information about what we're speaking about. I'd like to highlight the Features section. Under the Features section, the emphasis, of course, as you've heard me say a few times today, is our delivery model, software as a service. With leveraging the cloud, this provides you the ability to provide much more frequent services, much more value-added services, because you're not dependent on software on a laptop or software on a desktop. This is obviously a critical point. Along with the product line, you'll see that we have vulnerability management available. So I mentioned network discovery, rogue device identification previously. That is an important step within our vulnerability management product. Some very purposeful workflow, do initial discovery, identify the assets that need to be scanned, not just on demand, but on an ongoing basis. Then web application scanning. Your clients have URLs that are publicly facing, even internally in pre-production environments, for example. Obviously a focus around OWASP top 10. Cross-site scripting, SQL injection type vulnerabilities is going to be very critical to your client's needs. Policy and PCI compliance. Obviously, this is a big hot button right now. PCI is something that a lot of people are familiar with. A lot of people are using for their own benchmarking. HIPAA compliance. That's another hot button, of course, right now. HIPAA, as I mentioned earlier, we do have some importable policies that are available around CIS that you can leverage to provide against your client. Obviously, one of the challenges for compliance is what does your client need to comply with? That is a very common challenge that your customers have. They come to you in need of compliance scanning, but they don't exactly know what they need to comply with. Our product allows you to establish that baseline for your client. I like to refer to as readiness. Reporting. One of the things I always tell consultants right off the bat is our reporting is definitely our biggest learning curve. And I say that with very positive intentions. Obviously, reporting is critical to any business. For you to deliver value services, you must be able to deliver actionable information to your clients in various forms, depending on who you're dealing with. It could be an IT person, an executive person, an analyst, a network engineer. It all depends. And this is going to allow you to provide various services to them in different formats. You can see that we do co-branding for all our partners as well, so your logo would appear on the interface and all the reports you generate. You also have the ability to customize, add in your own information within the results, filter information, limit what you want to present, etc. From a pricing standpoint, as you can see here, for QualysGuard Consultant, the minimum cost to get started is just under $2,000. That gives you access to vulnerability management, policy compliance, and PCI compliance. If you'd like also access to web application scanning with our malware detection service, it would be additional $500. So just under $2,500, you can have access to the QualysGuard suite. With our model that you're seeing here, being a pay-per-scan model, one of the attractive things in what we provide is that you're not purchasing anything. You're subscribing to QualysGuard. It is our responsibility to maintain the platform, the software, the database, the product. That includes enhancements, feature releases, etc. Part of this pricing model that you'll see here is a very low upfront as well as a very low ongoing cost. Besides the $2,000 to get started, essentially your only guaranteed cost, and I say only guaranteed cost every year, is just under $1,000 to maintain your subscription. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition back to the slide deck. And as we wrap this up, I just would like to explain that I appreciate you joining us today, and I hope the information will prove to be very valuable to your organization. I encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's an excellent way to stay in touch. You can also have an opportunity to see who I've worked with in the past over the years. Perhaps we have some mutual contacts. To get more information about QualysGuard Consultants, please go to smbnation.com, and you'll find the Qualys banner on the right side that will allow you to contact me directly if you'd like to ask questions, receive complete pricing detail, or even leverage an evaluation on your network or even with a client. The evaluation, by the way, is given at no cost or obligation and has no restriction in capability or functionality. It simply carries a time limit of 14 days upon activation. Harry?
Yeah, Chris, thank you. I have a couple questions have rolled in, and folks, be sure to use your chat feature to ask questions that you might have today. Excuse me. Okay, so first question is, how quickly could we get started with using your services? Boy, I'll tell you, it's too early on the West Coast, my friend.
Yes, it is. I'm with you. Well, that's a great question, and I'm actually glad that's asked because that's something that draws a lot of attention to our delivery model. Again, being software as a service, cloud-based, if you have access to the internet, you can get immediate access to QualysGuard. And of course, is one of the benefits to the model is immediacy, accessibility, and of course, be able to leverage the platform allows you to deliver much more frequent services and, as I said, value services to your client because you're not dependent on software on a laptop, software on a desktop.
Cool. And then I had a question come in, and you know what, I actually have the same question, so appreciate the listener queuing it up. But bottom line is, do you have any suggestions on how we can charge our clients for a service like this? Chris, this is the old fee versus free conversation that's as old as Aristotle.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. No, that is an excellent point. One of the unique things about this model, and I touched on it briefly with the per scan pricing, is this type of a model allows you to very carefully control your cost to use the product and then what you need to charge your client. I think one of the common issues with dependency of traditional software and hardware tools is you're making a purchase of something. So what is that going to cost you, not just up front, but ongoing? Again, with our model, you're not purchasing anything. It's just subscription-based. So what I'm getting at is that cost to get started is very specific to what your needs are. The cost that you're paying allows you to get access to the product, and as you expand your business, you can purchase additional scans. As I mentioned earlier, it is on a per-scan basis. You purchase additional scans as business comes about. You're not buying something and then trying to go recoup your costs. It is the pay-as-you-need, pay-as-you-go type model. So get down to specifics. What I typically tell consultants is your ultimate goal is to try and stay away from a one-time assessment. That may sound pretty silly, but obviously with security being very dynamic, audits need to occur on a frequent basis. Maybe compliance says once a year, but what about the other 11 months? So the approach you're taking with your client is, let's look at your network overall. Not just IP addresses, but URLs. Let's take a look at routers, switches, printers, servers, desktops, IP phones, databases, all those things. Everything that has a live IP is susceptible to exploitation. If your client is looking for quarterly scans, then maybe charge them maybe $10, $15 a scan. If they get it down to monthly, then you can reduce your per scan cost. Why? Because you're going to have more opportunity to provide your value services, essentially your billable hours. The more you scan, the more frequency you'll have to provide services.
Cool. Chris, we have another individual ask. Actually, this is for me. Will this be recorded? Yes, sir, it is being recorded. And with our thank you letter tomorrow, we'll provide a link for the replay. Here's another question. How do we become Qualys consulting partners? So maybe if you could go one layer deeper on your partner program and how they sign up.
Sure. Let me pull up our website here. I think that's a good opportunity. So I mentioned here up on the top page of our website the various levels of partnerships that we have. I've only highlighted the consultant portion, but we do have reseller programs, absolutely 100%. As I mentioned earlier in one of the original slides, we as a company don't do any consulting or professional service or managed services, so our partnerships are very important to Qualys. We rely on these organizations to provide services to organizations that probably wouldn't be able to work with us directly for various reasons. Maybe it be limits from a financial perspective or a client or a personnel perspective perhaps. So in terms of signing up, we encourage everybody to get started as a consultant first. What this gives you the ability to do is get familiar with our technology, get familiar with our platform. Ultimately, if you try to sell QualysGuard, it's in your best interest to have a full understanding of how the product works. And that's what QualysGuard Consultant allows you to do. As I mentioned earlier, it just has an initial cost of just under $2,000 to get started. And that's something you can contact me about. We can make arrangements for payment, and I have terms that I would provide to you. You can pay via Net30, you can pay via credit card. It's very easy to get started. And as I said, an introduction to QualysGuard is the best way to go as a consultant. And we do have reseller programs that you can transition to that provide margins and the ability to resell our product suite.
Excellent, excellent. Hey, Chris, we have another question.
Great.
Do you provide training? It's actually, again, it could have been my question, by golly. Do you provide training for consultant partners? And let me maybe add a little bit to the individual's question. It's a very straightforward question, but
yes.
I like the word consultant. I pride myself on having, paid my dues in the 90s and 2000s as a day-to-day consultant. I never became entirely comfortable with the term reseller, and no offense to people on the phone, but consultant seemed to be maybe a little bit more. It conveys a little bit more of an advisory role, and maybe you're part of that, what I like to call kitchen cabinet right there with the CPA and the attorney advising the business owner. And central to that is going to be the training, right? A consultant has to be an educated individual. So that's a really long way of asking the question that the listener asked. Do you provide training?
Yeah, no, Harry, that's a good point. I understand where you're coming from. As I mentioned earlier, the resellers that we have, we do make it a prerequisite that they become a consultant partner because it's very important, right? It's very, very important that they understand the technology and position it properly. Ultimately, it's the value to the end customer, and that's what we want to make sure we achieve, right? So in terms of training, besides myself, this is what I do. This is what I'm available for, provide some training for you and your team. I can have a discussion from a business side of things, from a technical side of things. Outside of that, as you can see here in this hyperlink that I'm showing, we do provide training and certification courses that are included with the annual subscription. We have training and certification courses all over the world, and you can take advantage of them. As I said, no additional charge. Everybody can go. You can go as often as you'd like, and they're in various locations. Typically a 2-day course, 1 day for vulnerability management, another day for policy compliance and web application scanning. It is a full day, 9 to 4, so you will need to dedicate some time. One of the advantages of the training as well, obviously besides sitting with our training staff and get fully up to speed on our capability, it does count towards maintaining your CPE credits. So if anybody is certified, this does count towards maintaining those points.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. I apologize. I didn't realize you had I'm going to call it a authentic and bona fide certification process. I've had the pleasure of developing some of those as a vendor to Microsoft, and that's a huge commitment on the vendor side. That's not trivial to develop a certification program. And then, so my compliments. And then to have the continuing professional education requirements, I've always wanted to have that in the programs I developed. Unfortunately, I'm going to say for logistical reasons, to put it mildly, we haven't been able to do that in the efforts I've been associated with. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about your CPE credits. That's very interesting.
Sure. I appreciate the compliment. One thing we take great pride in is ensuring that our customers understand our platform. Our business is so focused around annual subscriptions. We are in business because we provide a service to our clientele on an ongoing basis, and we are focused on earning their business on an annual term. With that being said, training and certification, right? We, of course, want to make sure our customers understand how to use our platform. It's in our best interest. It's in their best interest. They understand the product they have capability to. To us, our philosophy, charging for training and certification, I don't know, it just doesn't sound good. Charging people to learn how to use your product. We like to provide this important value to our model.
And are your examinations, here's my follow-up question, is that I like you, I've seen it all, and I've seen certification exams that are not, let's just say they're not an earned certificate. There are industry certifications where if you have a heartbeat and you log on, you pretty much have completed the process and maybe a couple questions and you get a badge and a certificate. I'm assuming that yours is what we would call an earned certification, that there's some study and your questions are rigorous and challenging. Do you want to speak towards maybe what your instructional design philosophy was? But just knowing you, I'm assuming it's competitive. Does that make sense?
It does. No, I understand, and I think perhaps the misconception that it could be considered free, so maybe it doesn't have as much value of something you're going to pay for. This training is something that we have designed around our customer base. We take great pride in supporting our customers. We have excellent relationships with our customers, and we get a lot of feedback, a lot of questions, a lot of input, etc. And we tailor these training courses around how our customer base use the product. I showed you earlier that slide about our very diverse customer base. We have a lot of very reputable organizations who, of course, have very established security programs. So what we do is we tailor these training sessions, which I should add, they are very dynamic. We do major feature releases in the increments of, I would say, every 6 to 8 weeks. So it's a very dynamic product. And part of that, of course, is revamping the training and certification course to stay in line with that. So it's one of those things I encourage consultants to go at least once a year to the training and certification. There is an exam at the very end, and it is specific to the content that you went through of the past few hours. So from that standpoint, it's legitimate. And I think that's an important point, is that not just the fact that it is a very concentrated and specific program, but it is very dynamic. So it's not information that's going to become stale.
Yep. Well, again, my compliments. That's having worked both sides of the aisles. That's a huge investment by you guys, and the listeners. If you haven't been there, at least appreciate the effort. Folks, let's do last call for questions. I'm looking over at the queue. If you have further questions, go ahead and queue them up, and we'll give that just another minute or two. While we're waiting, as people typically know, I have CNBC running in the background during my workday, and I normally give the stock market update. However, this week, I'm unable to do that because I have the Olympics feed. So we're watching Gracie Gold go for gold. I mean, that name, goodness sake, her parents, was that name planned when she was born?
Yeah, I would think so.
That is a Wheaties cereal box cover in the making. So, folks, with all my humor aside, no stock market update today. I'm looking over at the queue. I have no further questions. We'll give it just one more second, and I'll start with the housekeeping. And Chris, if you want to maybe bring up your slide where there's the contact information or whatever relevant slide you would like to present. But folks, this webinar has been recorded. It is our weekly webinar series at SMB Nation, and we've had a rigorous conversation with Qualys and Chris, who represents them today. You will receive a thank you note tomorrow morning in your inbox with a link to the recording and other resources. And then next week, go ahead and put on your schedule to join us for some PowerShell programming. And then the following week is a webinar on waving your magic wand and designing the next small business server if budget were no issue. So with that said, Chris, I have no further questions. Maybe if you want to make a few final comments, and we'll let these good people get back to work.
Sure. Very good. Thank you, Harry. So just to reemphasize, everybody, I certainly encourage you to look me up on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me an invite. I'm happy to connect with you. In addition, as I indicated earlier, from the smbnation.com website, you will see the Qualys banner on the right side. And if you fill out that landing page, it will come directly to me. I'm happy to arrange a time with you if you want to talk about products in a little bit more detail, pricing information, and again, the evaluation. We encourage everybody to take an opportunity to try it out. There's no cost, there's no obligation, and you're free to use it however you'd like during the 14 days. Outside of that, our website. As I showed you, we have lots of great information on our public website there on the consultant page, as well as our partner program. Harry?
Okay, well, with that said, thank you very much, folks. I better go let Astro, the English Springer Spaniel, who's our company mascot, out. Chris, thank you so much, sir. Everybody have a great day. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.